Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Gaïa from Tiki Editions. This is a tile-laying competitive game where each of the players takes control of a god who is trying to build up this world of Gaïa and do it better than the other players. Mechanically speaking, you're trying to be the first player to put out 5 of your meeples, or 6 if you're in a 2-player game. These meeples representing your followers and even perhaps the achievements that you're trying to attain. You're laying out tiles that represent the different types of land that can go out into Gaïa. You're going to try to meet achievements based on the land that goes out there. You also are trying to put out cities onto the new map that you're building and populate those cities with your followers instead of the other followers. And if you play with the advanced rules, you even have power cards that represent your godly might and smiting down your opponent's cities, or just changing the terrain, or just protecting yourself. So let's go ahead and do a brief look, take a brief look at, you don't do a look, you take a look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, I'm going to do a very brief overview of Gaïa, and full disclosure up front, I'm experimenting a little bit today and I want to see what it's like to sort of have a roving camera for one of the overviews, sort of Rado style. If it doesn't work, let me know, but I just want to experiment on this review. Now, Gaïa is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players where the players take control of gods who are trying to build this world of Gaïa, and you're trying to be the best at it before the other gods do, I guess, and populate it with your followers as opposed to your opponent's followers. Now, what this means in game terms is that you're going to win the game by being the first player to put out all 5 of your meeples of your appropriate color. Now, if you're playing with 2 players, you'll play with the blue and yellow pieces and actually have 6 meeples. But each player is going to start with 2 of these nature cards, 1 of these life cards, and then if you're playing with advanced rules, and I recommend that you might as well go ahead and try it, you will start off with 1 of these power cards as well. Plus, you'll have your meeples. Then all the other things that are out here, you have these lands tiles, which are swamps, seas, plains, deserts, and forests, and mountains. I almost forgot those. Then you have achievement cards. And the achievement cards are going to have a different amount of them depending on the number of players. This assumes a 4-player game, so you've got 6 of them out here. There's another set of the meeples that you'll use. And these are animal tokens. These are double-sided, so they have fish and cattle on either side. They're essentially food tokens. So sad. So sorry, animals. So let's get right into it. Now, each of these nature cards are cards that let you put out tiles. They all have different pictures of the different types of land tiles. So you have desert, forest, and water out here. So that's one way that you're going to get the land tiles into play. The life cards are cards that are either going to let you put cities into play or let you put animal tokens down onto one of the nature tiles. And the power cards are big screw you cards. That's the best way to describe them. You have things like lightning bolts, then you have cards like protection that will protect you from the screw you cards. Now on your turn, you have 2 actions that you're going to do. And you're going to go around in turn order. Each player is going to take 2 actions. One of the actions that you can do is to simply play one of the cards that's in your hands. You can play either a nature, life, or power card. And when you do so, you're going to stack the cards out in front of you. So let's say, for example, I had a plains card in hand. I'm going to play a plains card. That lets me put out one of these plains tiles, and I'll do that. So one player is going to start building the world at some point. Now, it's important to keep these cards out in front of you because that's where the achievements come in. You're going to be able to put one of your meeples on one of these cards the first time that you meet that achievement. So this particular achievement here says that you have to have 1 of every type of nature card out in front of you. Once you're able to do that, you're able to put one of your meeples there. This one says have 2 swamps and 2 plains, 2 seas and 2 plains. This one says the first person to make 4 power cards. Now there's actually doubles of some of the power cards, and the way that we were handling that, because it's not really clarified in the rules, is that if there's more than one of the same power cards, you don't get to put both meeples out there. It's the next person. Like let's say there was 2 of these forest desert ones. The next person to meet the same achievement gets to put their meeple on the other card. Otherwise, that'd be kind of the same because remember, it's a race. You're just trying to get out 5 meeples first before the other players do. So that's what happens when you play a nature card. You're going to put out one of these lands tiles. Now, the other cards that you have, let's just go ahead and build the map out a little bit more. just to assume we've progressed things a bit. Let's say that this is the world as it is now. The other thing you can do is play one of your... Remember, you have 2 actions per turn. You can do the same action if you want, but this is the playing a card action I'm describing right now. Let's say that you play a city card. Now, city cards have certain restrictions. Up in the top corner, it's going to tell you where you can play the city card. This one says you have to play it in a mountain spot. So I have... Hey, look at that. I have a mountain out here. And then at the bottom of the card... by the way, when you cover a tile with a city card, it ceases to become that land type. It is only a city now. Now, at the bottom of the card, you have needs. This one says it needs food, it needs to be next to the plains, swamp, and mountains. That means that wherever you put it, it wants to have those things next to it. And in this case, there is only plains next to it, so only one of its needs is being met. But if you were able to meet 2 of its needs, and remember, mountains don't count right now because that mountain is being covered up by the city itself. If you were able to have 2 of its needs met, you would get to put a meeple out with that. So let's say that the map instead looks like this. There's a plains and a mountains nearby, so the blue player played that card. The blue player is going to get to put a meeple there. If you were able to meet to increase the needs of the city, so let's say that one of the other types of life cards you can play are the food cards. When you play one of these cards, you'll also keep it in front of you, and then you'll put that many food tokens out on the appropriate terrain, which in this case happens to be the plains. So, the plains. So there you go, it's terrible. Now I've increased the needs of the city, which means I get to put another meeple. I'm sorry, actually, that would mean that another player would get to swap out. If, let's say that the white player increased the needs of the city, that means he would get to swap out his meeple for mine. But if one player is able to meet all 4 needs of the city, they're able to put 2 meeples out on the card. So I can come back and, let's say, put a swamp on a future turn next to that tile. Now all 4 needs are met, and then I'm able to put 2 meeples out. And remember, you only need to put 5 out to win. Now, the important thing about food is that at the start of every turn, if you have people in the city next to a food tile, they need to eat. So you need to remove one of these food tokens, and if you ever have to remove a food token but can't, you essentially, one of your needs is no longer met, which means you're going to have to remove at least one of your meeples, possibly both if none of the needs are being met. But that's essentially how cities are going to work. Cities are very important for winning the game. And by the way, every time, one of the actions, the other type of action you can do is to take cards from the lineup. So you can take one of the cards that is already out there. You'll always have 3, 2, and 2 of those types of cards. And then you must immediately replace it back into the lineup, or you can take a blind draw off of one of the decks. Now, to explain the power cards a bit, like I said, these are essentially screw you cards. If you play a lightning card, you get to destroy an entire city. Just boom, gone. The city's gone, the meeples go back to their owner, that's it. These cards are protection cards. If someone plays a power card you don't like, this is the only card you can play out of turn order. You can play this card, it is canceled. Let's see, the Sun, this card lets you turn a swamp into a plain, and then a plain into a desert, I think. It's something like that. You just swap out the tiles. Rain is the opposite. You can turn... sorry, I'm blanking just a little bit, but I think you can turn a plain into a swamp, or a desert into a plain, and then a plain into a swamp, I think. Earthquake lets you switch adjacent tiles together with their meeples and cities, and let's see if I'm forgetting everything else. Volcano is truly treacherous, because this one will essentially, you play this onto a mountain tile, and it will like nuke everything adjacent to it orthogonally. Cities get removed, it's just terrible. And cities get removed, and like the area turns into desert. So that's what power cards are capable of. If you're really trying to make a play with cities, you're probably going to want to lock down some of those protection cards. And let's see, that's pretty much it for the game as far as the basics. You're going to keep, it's a tile-laying game, you're going to keep putting out tiles, and ideally you want to put out a city when you've already got it locked down with all of its needs so that no one else can steal them from you. But of course, they could always lightning bolt it. You need to feed them. You need to worry about getting achievement cards if you can. That's essentially Gaia in a nutshell, and I hope that this new video style worked. Let's get to my final thoughts. Okay, first off, component-wise, this game is really, really pretty. I mean, it's just great looking. From the box, which immediately grabbed you when I saw it and made me want to try the game, to the beautiful tiles and all the the graphic design on all the cards is very minimalist in some ways. There's no text. This game is completely language independent other than the rule book, but I mean, I'm sure you can find rules for other languages at some point. And that's really, really great. So the game just looks gorgeous from beginning to end. Everything's laid out very nicely. Even the meeples work for what it is. So it's aesthetically, it can't be beat, really. Now, thematically, let's go to that first. Well, it's a tile laying game. This can be considered abstract in a lot of ways. I didn't really feel like I was a powerful god building this world, but that's kind of okay. You just kind of get into it. This isn't really the type of game that's meant to have a serious and seriously get you into it. It's just about the sort of methodical motion of putting out these tiles and building the world, and you do feel like you're building something, so there is that. Mechanically speaking, there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I do like how it's not just... well, let me back up a step. I don't like Carcassonne. I don't like it at all, and I really don't understand people's obsession with it. The kind of the same way I think the Beatles are just okay, but at least I think the Beatles are okay. I strongly dislike Carcassonne, and I don't understand its popularity. But this game is going to be compared to Carcassonne just as every other tile-laying, world-building game is going to be. There was even another game called Galaxy of Trion, which had a completely different theme of building a galactic empire, still heavily compared to Carcassonne because it was just that type of game. I do think, however, that there's some significant differences in Gaïa. First off, there's no kind of point scoring here, which some people actually complain about in Carcassonne because of the whole thing with the farmers and that confusing scoring system. This one is just a race to get your meeples out first. I have never seen a game end, I didn't even mention this in my overview, I've never seen a game end by any of the decks running out of cards. If you want to draw a card from one of the decks and there are no cards left, the game is supposed to end at that point. Whoever has the most meeples out is the winner. Never going to happen. It's a constant back and forth and swinging back and forth, especially if you use the power cards, and you might as well use the power cards. I'll get back to that in a second. It's a constant back and forth of putting out meeples, having to have them removed when people lightning bolt you, or when people steal them from you for increasing the needs of a city. And so you're always, once you get to like round 5, 6, something like that, you're always on the cusp of victory. You're getting close, and the other players are getting close too. So what are you going to do to stop that from happening, or doing it before them? So that's a very different feel from Carcassonne. Also, the idea of you have the tiles that you put out, that it's deterministic. You determine what tiles you're going to put out. Yeah, you may not have the cards that you need. That's going to be random, but at least you can choose from those piles as well. That's a completely different dynamic to this game, and a cool one at that. As well as putting out the animal tokens and the cities. And that's really, I think, where the game shines, is in where it gives it its bit of theme, and building the cities and having to meet its needs. I really like that whole mechanic, where it's important where the tiles are placed, it's important where you place the city, and then also having the animals is not just another need to be met, but you have to feed your people too. Feeding your people, one of those popular Euro game mechanics that's either very popular or you absolutely hate it. But it's pretty low stress in this one, and it's easy to mitigate that too. When you see that you're getting low on food, but it's an interesting kind of tension because you want to maintain your meeple there, but you see yourself plucking away food tokens every round. So how long can that last? Is it worth? You're now sacrificing actions just to get more animal cards to then play them in order to keep your people in that city. And of course, there's the ever-present threat of getting lightning bolted, and that doesn't matter anyways. And you definitely want to place your city in such a way that you can crowd out other people, make sure as many of its needs as possible are met so that other players cannot go ahead and steal that from you. And then hopefully you can meet all 4 needs and put 2 of your meeples out, which is just like, for this game where you only need to get 5 or 6 meeples out, depending on number of players, that's a huge play. 2 is a huge swing, and it can really make or break the game. The power cards, that's probably... Here's the main issue with the game, okay? And I think I like the game. It's okay. It's not great. And I think the reason is, if you were to only play with the basic game, and when the rule book starts off explaining the game to you, it doesn't even bother mentioning the power cards. Those are in the back. You're assumed to be playing the basic game. And that's how we played our first game. But if you play just the first game, just the basic game, there's not enough edge there. There's not enough teeth to it to make it anything that special. It's just put out tiles, hope you get the right cards to put out the right tiles to meet the needs of a city, and that's it. I mean, even if you don't use the power cards are actually part of a bigger set of advanced rules, and in those advanced rules, that's also when you would steal cities from people. So you don't even have that in the basic game. But if you do play with the advanced rules, with the power cards, with the stealing the city, it can become a take that game, and a very frustrating one at that. And I should mention here, this is not sour grapes. I've actually won each game of this that I've played, but I did it by using cards that essentially just completely wrecked someone else's game. If you see a city with 2 meeples, you lightning bolt it, and you lightning bolt it right now. Or maybe you wait a little bit, but if they're on the cusp of winning, boom, now they're not. And in an otherwise deterministic game that can be strategy-based in determining how you put the tiles out and which cards that you take, and following hand limits and things like that, in that type of game, in the kind of game that it's built up to be, adding those elements to it is just, it's unsatisfying. It's not satisfying to win that way. It's neat thematically to have a volcano rise up, but it's also incredibly devastating to possibly multiple players. And again, it just feels weird to win that way. The game is relatively short, so these things don't matter all that much. You can, once you have your feet under you can play this game in like a half hour, I'm sure, or less. I don't know, it's an okay game. It's just that it doesn't really live up to its potential theme or to the beauty of its aesthetics. It's just, there's not enough to it. It's not original enough with the basic game, despite how good that it looks. Even with the cool city building mechanic, it doesn't feel like anything all that special. And when you do add in the advanced rules, it makes it more interesting and makes it more of a gamerly game, but it also adds some frustration and just take that elements that I found kind of disappointing and just not what I was looking for. So it's a simple enough game that I think that young people and people that are new to games are going to be able to get into it, and I think it's certainly better than Carcassonne, definitely. Let me just say that. So I think there is a place for this game. I think there are people that will appreciate it for that, for its simplicity, for the way that it looks. For gamerly gamers, I think you're going to have better options. Unfortunately, a lot of you love Carcassonne, so you should probably just stick with that. For me, I think it's okay, but I'll probably move on from it because it's, despite how good it looks, it just wasn't enough for me. That is Gaïa from Tiki.